Welcome to Season 2 of Chloe Sells NYC. Season 1 was so much fun and I got such an overwhelming response, so here we are back for Season 2. On today's episode, we're going to talk about what happened in 2020 real estate and what is a COVID discount. So let's get to it. We're gonna get into the nitty-gritty of the numbers for 2020 so you can understand what happened compared to previous years. So the first question we want to know is how many contracts were signed in 2020? And surprisingly, it was really high. 7,200 contracts were signed. How many were signed in 2019? 9,640. So the difference is really not as large as we expected, given that we lost a whole quarter. Why is that? We saw a phenomenal rebound in the last quarter of 2020. The supply of real estate was 7,447 apartments, which was a record high. In 2019, the supply was 6,157. Part of the reason for that is in December, we usually see a decline in supply and inventory. However, this year we actually saw an increase because the seasons were all shifted due to the lockdown. Pending sales was 3,070, which is really very strong for December, and that's usually a number that we see around the month of June. Now we want to look at the spread between the supply and the pending sale, and what we see here is that it's really pretty high. However, pending sales went up for the first time since 2014. Another thing to know is that rise in level between pending sales from June to December was an extremely steep curve. And we can see from that people had much more confidence and were out there making offers and getting into contracts. Now, a big question is, what was the listing discount? And we tend to look at two factors: the discount from the original asking price of an apartment and the discount from the last asking price, which means there's been a price readjustment. The overall average discount from the original price was of 7%. Way lower than you were expecting, right? The discount from the last ask was only 3.9%. Now let's look at 2009, which was the great financial crisis. That's when we saw the biggest discounts. And guess what? Our discounts this year were significantly lower than in 2009. And the discount from the last ask in 2009 was 6.2. So we're talking nearly double the discount that we saw during COVID in 2020. Why is the COVID discount not higher, Chloe? What we saw was the buyers in the lower price point return to market really quickly, and a lot of deals done were under 1 million or 2 million. And those price range definitely didn't have the discount level of 15 to 20% that certain buyers were expecting. Sellers were not agreeing to make deals at that price and they were willing to wait it out. However, there were discounts made in the luxury market above 10 million and those were higher. So let's look at the average price discount overall per month. What month did we see the biggest discounts? The highest price cut discounts were in the month of May, which on average was 10.9%, and then in November, which were 10.4%. Interestingly, in October, we only saw a 7.4% average discount. So as you can see, this year, buyers' confidence went up and down, and there were more or less negotiation. This is really important for you to know as a buyer when you're formulating an offer, and as a seller when you're receiving an offer. Your category of purchase or sale is going to affect your potential discount. As I always say, each market segment has its own behavior. Each neighborhood has its own behavior. By the way, this is all for Manhattan. Brooklyn was pretty much on fire. We even saw some bidding wars happen. So if you want to know specifically for a neighborhood or specifically for a price point, let me know and I will get you those numbers. Thank you for joining me in this first episode of Season 2 of Chloe Sells NYC. If you have any specific questions for Season 3, just let me know. Drop me a comment or give me a call. Have a great day.